My name is Emmanuel Edet. My DG sends his very, very warm regards, and he has asked me to tell you that NITDA as an agency is specifically interested in the ecosystem. We are called regulators because our act says we are supposed to provide framework guidelines for information technology practices, systems, and of course also deployment in Nigeria. But that's not how we see ourselves. And that's one of the themes I'm going to leave with you today. How do you really see yourself? What is the narrative about the tech space here in Nigeria? We don't see ourselves as regulators, we see ourselves as enablers. Yes, you use the word regulation because that's where the word actually fits into the law. But in practice, our work is to create frameworks and guidelines that will enable the development and use of technology or information technology or digital technology, whatever you call it, in Nigeria. And so we like partnerships, we like conversations, we like engagement, because these are the kind of things that brings out the optimal framework that will enable us develop and grow information technology here in Nigeria. My work this morning is to, in 10 minutes, give you a prediction of how technology is going to look in Nigeria by the end of Q4. Sorry for us in NITDA, we always categorize our activities based on quarter because of the fast pace of information technology movement and the slow pace of government response to some of these things. So we have to strike a balance. So instead of a monthly assessment, we do a quarterly assessment to see how we have performed. I don't know if you got my slides, but I just have only one slide. And it's to talk about what we see from NITDA, how technology is going to look like in 2025. We've all heard that data is the new oil, right? How many of us agree that data is the new oil? Oh, you do. Everybody agrees data is the new oil. So we are running a data economy. But who generated this narrative and what's behind it? Have we ever thought about that? Somebody told us that data is the new oil. And we all agree, right? But have we ever thought about what is behind that statement? Let's do a little simple analysis. Oil data. 60 to 70% of the data we are talking about is personal data, your data. 100% of the oil is found in land, right? So first of all, the source is different. Do we agree? Okay. Secondly, your personal data is supposed to be owned by you. But people are using it to trade anyway. Whether you like it or not, they don't pay you for using your personal data to trade and send you messages. But oil takes a lot of cost in terms of mining before you can bring it out and turn it into whatever you want to turn it into, and eventually has economic value. So if you think about it in that way, we are being told that data is the new oil, so it's like data is not part of us. It's something that can be taken from us without us having a say about our personal data. I agree data is the new economic value, but really, I ask again, is data the new oil? You still agree? It's your property. If you like, give it away free of charge. So I'm going to basically focus on connectivity, digital literacy skills, emerging technologies, government initiatives, the innovation ecosystems, and just speak to you about what we expect to see based on the indices that we have experienced in 2024 and what we are seeing coming in terms of investment and interest in Nigeria for 2025. One of the biggest challenges that we've had over the past few years has been the stability of the economy. Nobody will invest in an economy that is not stable enough for you to have a prediction of the kind of returns you have on your investment. And so, but we are beginning to see a stabler naira, which is more predictable these days. You know, those days Naira had this galloping effect, and so you couldn't know what Naira would be the next day when you wake up. But it's a little bit more stable now. So in terms of connectivity, in 2004, there were significant improvements. 5G expanded, with Lagos and Port Harcourt being the focal points of this kind of expansion. 5G has about, as at today, about 11.12% coverage of the whole country, compared to 4G, which has gone up to about 74 to 84% coverage. We expect that in 2025, 4G should be able to achieve 100% coverage of Nigeria. And with all the fiber that is landing in Lagos, and I recently heard that one had just landed in Akwa Ibom as well, we expect that there will be rapid growth in terms of broadband access to Nigeria and Nigerians as well. We should understand that this will enable more access to digital services, because as your access increases, your speed of the internet increases, you will have better services. Even though recently, Collins has mentioned, the services have been degraded because of the economic change and the Naira. So expect that with the improvement in connectivity, we'll have more innovative services being provided to a wider range of people, and this will improve the digital economy. Digital literacy skills. Again, it's my main theme for this month, the narrative. If you check anywhere online, you or you read that we have 45% digital literacy. That was very interesting to us in NITDA, because we have done our own surveys and studies, and we tend to disagree with that subject. And so we did a review of how we got that 45%. Of course, it was from the World Bank. And eventually we found out that it was a random sampling they did among 30 Nigerians. And that was extrapolated to 250 million people. Again, the narrative. But we are stuck with that. And so we used it as our baseline for digital literacy expansion. NITDA created the digital literacy framework because we also found out that there's no unique definition of digital literacy. Some people say digital literacy is if you can copy one folder to another. And we categorize that digital literacy. The framework is available online if you take a look at it. So based on those framework, we came up with 3 strategies, which are basically mainstreaming digital literacy into our formal educational sector, ensuring that the workforce, especially those in the federal government, must have digital literacy before you can be employed in the first place, and you must have digital literacy before you can be retained. And then for the outliers, those areas that are not properly served, we are working currently with the NYSC to make sure that COPPers are as of digital literacy. And so we go to camps in various states, we train the COPPers on a train the trainer program, and whenever they go to the schools they are posted to, or wherever they are posted to, they are used to enable training. So with this, we hope to achieve at least 75% digital literacy for the year 2025, and by 2030 to cover the whole of the country, everybody should be able to use digital devices in order to participate in the digital economy. So we are hoping that this will provide the minimum baseline for digital literacy in Nigeria. Of course, there's the top-end digital literacy, the 3 MTT projects that Collins mentioned. In fact, Collins provided so much statistics, I don't need to provide anymore. You've already seen that. The 3 MTT is 3 million tech talents, is designed to train high-end technology proficiency in Nigeria. And the essence of this is to ensure that we can actually sell our skills for foreign exchange. That was the original target. With the era of remote working, we know that people can sit in Nigeria and foreign exchange and be able to make a lot of money. We hope that will improve That's what we are looking at this year. We are also looking at what other companies like the Microsoft, the AI training that Collins also mentioned, and a few other companies like Cisco are also in partnership with us to carry out this training on their platforms, as well as engaging with the Ministry of Education to achieve this goal. So we will see an increase in those who can use technology in the year 2025, an increase in the high-end talent and skills that is required to run a digital economy. And we are sure that the input of these skills and knowledge will improve our uptake of services, as well as encourage more people to participate in the digital economy. Emerging technologies. Now, this is where it gets very interesting. We've also observed in NITDA that technology enjoys a lot of adoption as long as it's convenient. But where there are security concerns or where there are business concerns, it poses a challenge to everyone. Most times we do not even understand how these technologies work. We just take them because they are very convenient to use. Your ATM card, your bank app, everything, whatever happens behind there is none of your business. But we are looking at an explosion of emerging technology, such as artificial intelligence is always the first one, maybe because it starts with A. So we always select artificial intelligence as the first one. But we have other ones like your blockchain. We have automated vehicles or autonomous vehicles, as they may call it, virtual or augmented reality, Internet of Things, and all the likes as far as emerging technologies are concerned. And of interest to us recently is cloud and edge computing, which is also an emerging technology. We have seen a rapid growth in the adoption of AI, especially by individuals. But like Collins mentioned, AI runs on data. And a lot of the data that affect our local circumstances are not available for these models to be trained on. And we don't even understand some of the algorithms and how they affect us individually. There are several examples of biases that are transferred from humans to AI, basically because it's the way the person that designed that algorithm thinks. And so it's automatically transmitted to the AI infrastructure. So we are hoping that there will be more transparency, because we have seen companies in Nigeria, especially in Lagos, coming up with data gathering and chronicling and archiving function that will enable this AI tap into those data and be trained properly. So we believe we are going to have more AI centered around our culture and our announces available for Nigerians. So it's not only AI, cloud computing as well, edge computing. We are talking about infinite power of processing our data, and that can be done by the cloud. A lot of cloud companies are coming to invest in Nigeria. I think November or December last year, Huawei launched their local cloud here in Nigeria. AWS, as we mentioned, Google is coming, and a few others, even Microsoft are, what is Collins? They are returning. So we are going to see an increase in the adoption of emerging technology here in Nigeria in the next year, which we have already started. And we are going to see a lot of use of these technologies in automating mundane tasks. No doubt it will be a challenge to those who have been doing those mundane jobs. But this is where digital skills also come in. People must learn to upskill themselves in order to survive in the environment that we are walking into. Doctors need to learn a lot of IT because they are going to be using IT-based equipment to carry out their diagnosis and do whatever they need to do. And it's the same thing that applies to everybody. Even my fellow lawyers are also facing their challenges, because legal research that you pay for before, AI will give it to you right now in a few seconds. But it may not be accurate, but at least it's better than nothing. So those are the things that we hope to see in the year 2025. Then I'll move on to government initiatives. This is a very interesting one because that hits home to people like us. The government has been struggling basically because of legacy systems. And when I say legacy systems, most of the acts that establishes government regulators actually gives them powers to carry out certain functions. And those powers are exclusive in nature. But when you come to the technology environment, there's nothing like exclusivity because one thing cascades into another. So you're setting up a business, for example, and you are given incentive to drive that business forward, a startup. And the first business you need to have, you hear that you need at least 25 years experience in Nigeria, which of course you're a startup, you don't have 25 years. Now, whoever created that 25 years rule is not a technology oriented regulator and so would not understand what it means for you to encourage a startup to actually carry out activities, and they may do it more efficiently. The same thing too, there was a time when cryptocurrencies were not allowed on exchanges in Nigeria, but at the same time, the Security and Exchange Commission recognized digital assets as taxable assets that has value. And so how do you marry those two policy inconsistency? But the good news is that throughout 2023 and 2024, we have seen how government has begun to collaborate amongst themselves to come up with uniform policies and guidelines that will encourage the adoption of technology. There are several technology-oriented policies that are much better now. There's greater collaboration among regulators and also greater collaboration between regulators and the ecosystem and especially stakeholders. This has moved us from armchair policies to a collaborative and co-creation posture for policies in Nigeria. Because of this, we've had the policy on cryptocurrencies and of course digital assets. There's a uniform procedure now that has been developed jointly by the CBN and Security and Exchange Commission. There's also international collaboration. We in NITDA, we're thinking of refocusing our local content policy. Initially, our local content policy was to protect the local companies that are coming out of Nigeria from foreign influence. But we have realized that we could also re-engineer that by projecting our local companies to compete internationally. And so we are carrying out that initiative. There's a greater collaboration between federal government and state government, especially in the tech space, which is something that has not happened before. And so we intend, or we will see an improvement in these collaborations when federal policies are rolled out at the federal level. People don't live at the federal level; they live in states. For the innovation ecosystems, everything is covered. Based on what I have already said, there will be an increase in investments in the innovation ecosystem this year. But the interesting thing is that we only assess foreign investment. There's a lot of local investment that we don't even look at, which again is the redefining that we are talking about. We believe that these measures will drive the growth of the digital economy and contribute further to the GDP. And on a final note, when we are assessing the GDP for ICT, we look at the telecommunication sector and maybe some part of the software and IT sector. But we also forget that IT contributes to every other sector. So the growth in the financial sector is basically IT. The growth in the manufacturing sector is IT. The growth in agricultural sector is IT, but that is not calculated and added to IT. So how do we help improve the measurement of what information technology or digital technologies contribute to the Nigerian economy? So, in a parting note, we should begin to function and work with focus on developing data, because data is what drives the modern economy. The numbers we see, 60 to 70% of them are what we are told that are happening in our country. But what do we see happening in our country? We see a lot of improvement, we see a lot of growth, and I think we should speak more often of this, and it will help us create the baseline for investment and growth of the IT sector in 2025. Thank you very much.